today's meeting of the Transportation and Aviation Committee. I'm Bill Brooks. I co-chair this committee along with my fellow co-chairs, Sam Modi and Steve Manera. If both have been with the council for a long time and they help with these events. So Sam and Steve, if you're on the call, you want to say hello, now's the time.
I don't think either are here yet, Bill.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay, well, just want to give those two credit. Sam Modi's with Keller Engineers, Steve Manera with HNTB, and they're equally as active. I'm the one actually kicking off the meeting, but I did want to acknowledge them. So before we get started, I just want to remind everybody, if you could mute yourself during the presentation just to avoid background noise. We're going to have an opportunity at the end for a Q&A session, and please use the raise your hand feature during the question and answers. And then after the presentation by DRBA, we will ask John Hanson and Mike Venuto to give us a quick update on the Glassboro-Camden line. So with that, I want to introduce Rich Horseman of KS Engineers to get us started.
Thank you very much, Bill. I want to thank Steve Williams and Vince McConey for taking the time to join this call and give a presentation on what's happening with the Delaware River Bay Authority. It's my pleasure to introduce Vince McConey. Has served not only in all three branches of the government, legislative, executive, and judicial, but also served in all three levels of government in federal, state, and local. That is specifically Delaware. Vince has worked for three most recent governors of Delaware and served as a cabinet secretary for 16 years. He's currently Chief Operating Officer for the Delaware River Bay Authority, and we are grateful to have him join us today. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Vince.
Thanks, Rich. We could get up the presentation on the screen. That'd be great. Okay, and if we have the next slide. So I'm going to do four things, tell you one more thing or one or two more things about myself, then give, for those who are not really familiar with the DRBA, just some basics about our organization, and then talk about the capital improvement program and specifically some projects of interest. You can have the next slide. So as Rich said, I've worked in all three branches of government, which makes me the answer to a trivia question, which is who is the only living Delawarean who has served in all three branches of Delaware state government, legislative, executive, and judicial. So you can definitely win a bar bet, on that the next time you're in there. And I want to provide everybody with that key piece of information. What does a COO actually do? Well, in my case, I went to our bylaws and see what is it I'm supposed to be doing. And it says, quote, manage and oversee daily operations of the authority. So in other words, keep things moving, keep the planes landing and the cars and trucks going across the bridge and the ferry crossing. So some DRBA basics. We're an interstate compact agency created in 1962, which is this is the answer to one of the two questions I get most frequently, which is the DRBA a state agency or a federal agency? And the answer is, well, we're neither one. We're an interstate compact agency approved by the states of Delaware, New Jersey, and Congress, again, as I said, back in 1962. So our function, obviously, is multimodal transportation. Our governance structure is we've got 12 commissioners, 6 from each state, each of the 2 states, appointed by the governors, confirmed by the senates. Every action requires 4 yes votes from each state. So there's no picking off one guy or gal from the other state and winning a 7-5 vote. You got to have 4 on each side. And everything we do is subject to veto by either governor. Our funding is our operating budget we don't use any tax dollars, no state assistance. Our operations are paid entirely by user fees, in other words, bridge tolls primarily, but also ferry fares, airport rents and fees. We do get formula federal grant funding for airport capital improvements, and we also occasionally get discretionary funding for the ferry and bridge capital projects. If I could have the next slide, please. So our specific responsibilities are the Delaware Memorial Bridge. We have 7 miles of I-295, 6 on the Delaware side, 1 on the New Jersey side. That's not because we like Delaware more than New Jersey. It's because on the Jersey side, we have 295 up to the Jersey Turnpike. On the Delaware side, we have it up to where it splits off to 495. We have the Cape May Lewis Ferry and the accompanying approach roads. We have the Millville Executive Airport and the Cape May Airport in New Jersey. We have the Forts Ferry, which is a little tiny operation that runs between Delaware and Pea Patch Island, where Fort Delaware is, and Fort Mott over in New Jersey. And then we have 3 airports in Delaware. I put those initials up there because, for those of you not familiar, in the transportation aviation business, every airport has this 3-letter or alphanumeric identifier. So they may be in relation to the name, like Millville is MIV. Cape May is WWD because it was formerly the Naval Air Station Wildwood, so that's where the WWD comes from. And our airports in Delaware, again, not necessarily within your purview, but I'm sure you're all familiar with the fact that Wilmington Airport has recently added a Velo as a low-cost carrier. It's been hugely successful, and some of you may have even taken their flights. It's absolutely much more convenient, cheaper, faster than Philadelphia, and that's how they set themselves up, and they're doing very well. So all this to say that basically we're sort of like, I tell people, we're like the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which people have heard of if they haven't heard of the DRBA, except we're 1/20th the size of the Port Authority. So if I can have the next slide, please. So our biggest operational challenge, and what I'm here to talk about, our primary cost driver of the capital improvement program is aging infrastructure. And of course, we're no different than everybody else in the country. Our bridge spans were built in 1951 and 1968. 295 was constructed in the 50s. Our airports are all from World War II, except one that came in 1951, I believe. And our ferry vessels were launched between 1974 and 1981, which unfortunately makes that the newest part of our infrastructure, rather than even though it's rather old. So our answer to that challenge is making a significant and ongoing investment in that infrastructure. So if I can have the next slide, please. So specifically, we are in the first year of a 5-year, $700 million capital program, which is, to give you some perspective, that's easily double or triple what it was 10 years ago. That $700 million is about $600 million in authority funds and $100 million in external funds, primarily federal grants, but some state grants as well. In 2023, this year, we have 100 major and 100 minor capital projects each. So this huge investment is a partial answer to the other question that I get most frequently, which is, to the extent that people know the DRB, they know we run the bridge, and people say, well, it's a bridge, it just doesn't move. What do you do all day long? Well, managing this and a lot of other challenges, what we do all day long. So in terms of process, obviously we have an elaborate process. Just FYI, our fiscal year is equal to our calendar year. You may be familiar that Delaware and New Jersey have a fiscal year that I believe runs July 1 to June 30th, and the federal government's fiscal year runs October 1 to September 30, but our fiscal year is the same as our calendar year. Each fall in September, we have hearings for each of our components. Our components are the bridge, the ferry, Delaware airports, and New Jersey airports. And we literally go over every single project. There's 30 or 40 people in the room, and we kick it around, get all the details, the timing, the estimated cost. And then we go through a pretty elaborate prioritization process, because obviously as our agency, as every agency in the world, never has enough money to do everything that you want to do. So which are the most important things? So we literally rank each one of the major capital projects from 1 to, I think there's 104 for the coming year, rank them 1 to 104. And our minor capital, we rank high, medium, or low. And and then we decide, if depending on how much money we have, we go down the list and stop doing projects when we hit the end of that available funding. And then in December, when we present the draft CIP at the November board meeting, and then they adopt it in December for the following calendar year. So in a few weeks, I'll be presenting the draft 2024 CIP to our Board of Commissioners. And then we have quarterly progress meetings for each component. Again, bridge, ferry, Delaware airports, New Jersey airports. which is really important for coordination because things change all the time. Field conditions come up, budgets change, bids come in, all manner of possibilities. So, and we have everybody there. We have our engineering department, our maintenance department, our police department, our IT department, ferry folks, airport folks, a real estate person. Everybody's there. There's a saying that in terms of meetings that the fewer people you have at the meetings, the more you get done. That's really not the case in terms of capital budgets. You need everybody there. 30, 40 people, not too many at all. If I could have the next slide, please. So here are some key projects that we've completed in the last 5 years, including this year or about to complete. I-25, as I mentioned, built in the 50s. We had 4 phases. Phase 4 we completed a couple of years ago for about $38 million. Pin and link replacement. Pin and link is a ball and socket assembly connecting the towers of the bridge to the roadway. Unfortunately, it's metal on metal, which means it grinds against, there's not even any lubrication. So over time, the vibration creates sort of a space, increases the vibration of the bridge, not a good thing. So we recently replaced those pin and link assemblies with sliding bearings, which are basically state of the art. That cost us $21 million, but they're going to last a long time. We paint the bridge every year. And we do steel work every year, and I'll talk more about them later. But in the last 5 years, that's a combined total of about $60 million. Deck resurfacing. We're in phase 3 now, and this is the one that probably most people are familiar with because it's going on right now, and it's got basically a 2-lane closure for the entire period. And the current phase is Labor Day until right before Thanksgiving. Traditionally, when your deck or your roadway wears out, you've got to redeck, and that's an incredibly expensive and time-consuming process. So our engineers identified what's, I would say, almost the state of technology, state of the art these days, something called ultra-high performance concrete. It's cheaper and faster than traditional redecking. Still the most expensive project that we've done since the second span was built in 1968. That's a typo there. It says 51 million. Actually cost, I would love to have done it for 51 million. It actually cost 71 million. And when you compare that to show you what inflation does, we built the entire second span in 1968 for $77 million. So now we're just redecking that span and that costs 71 million by itself. Ferry, we have to dry dock our vessels. We have 3 vessels. The Coast Guard requires that we put every vessel in dry dock twice in 5 years. So that means, doing the math, you've got at least 1 vessel in dry dock every year, and sometimes 2. And dry docking is painting, steel repair, hulls, interior, etc. That's $9 or $10 million a year. In fact, the exact sum was 47.9 million over the last 5 years, ending this year. And then airports, we certainly don't leave our airports out. At WWD Cape May Airport, we rehab the runway 1028 is the major runway, and we rehabbed that cost about $7.3 million. And then at Millville, various airfield improvements, $5 million total. These are just a couple of big projects. In fact, over the next 5 years, we're going to be doing about $11 million of work at New Jersey airports combined. So we don't stint on our airports. If I can have the next slide, please. So those are some projects we've done. Now here's a project we're going to be doing in the next 5 years. So painting, something we do every year. And I'll give you a little, what I'm going to do, I'll just mention these and then we'll go into detail about each one of these individually. As I mentioned, steelwork, replacement, repair, 42 million on the books. Our ship collision protection system, 88.9 million, fall prevention fencing. And then at the airports, a lot of projects going on, especially at Cape May, which we'll talk about. Multi-purpose building or terminal is coming up. Multi-tenant building number 3 is coming up. And then it's really time to replace our fleet of vessels. And that's going to run almost $80 million just for one of those 3. So if I go to the next slide, please. So painting, first thing to keep in mind is painting is for corrosion protection, not for aesthetic reasons. The bridge, as you may know, is a military green, which I would not consider the most attractive color, but that's what it is. And it looks, when it's cloudy, it doesn't even look green. It looks gray. But we don't paint for aesthetic reasons. We paint for corrosion protection. Now, up until a few years ago, we were able to do spot repair. In other words, recoat the bridge, and we repainted every 10 years. And that doesn't mean that we paint the bridge every 10 years. It means we paint 10% of the bridge every year. And at the end of the 10 years, you start all over again. So we're painting basically every year. It got to the point where the paint was so thick that we couldn't add another coat. My favorite anecdote or tale is you would try and put a magnet on the metal and it would fall off because the paint was so thick. The magnets didn't work anymore. So I think in one spot they determined there were 37 coats of paint on. And by the way, and I know there's a lot of engineers on the call. I love engineers have a different word for everything. I would paint the bridge, but engineers don't. They coat. So also our original coatings were lead based, a lot of them and most of them. And so these days, of course, you can't just scrape the paint off. When you're stripping it down to bare metal, you have to encapsulate, and that's what you see in the picture at the right. So anyway, so 37 coats, can't put another coat on, strip it down to bare metal, encapsulate, negative air pressure. You can see it on the right there. And we're going to spend $31 million over the next 5 years. At that point, we will have basically stripped the entire metal of the bridge down to bare metal and put a coat on. So we'll be able to resume our sort of spot, what we call spot painting, and just put another coat on. That'll last for quite a while. So next slide, please. So another thing we do every year, steel replacement repair at the age of the bridge. As far into the future as you can forecast, we're going to be doing steel repair. We inspect our bridges every year very carefully. It's a requirement, even if we didn't want to do it, and we certainly don't. We do want to do it. We inspect both spans. We have two what we call general engineering consultants. I believe one of the firms, SNJDC, is on this call. And they each inspect one span each year, and they inspect the other one the other year, so they kind of check on each other. And we pay close attention to what we find in those. So we do some repair every year. Now, if we do a big project like Pin and Link, like I described before, that's a separate project. This is just the term and the project name is miscellaneous steel repair, but it's really more than miscellaneous. A lot of substantive stuff. So we're going to spend about $42 million over the next 5 years. Among the ongoing work, we're going to replace all the suspender ropes. Again, engineers I would call them vertical cables, but engineers refer to them as suspender ropes. We're going to replace them all. They're original to the bridge. That's ongoing. We'll have a couple more years of that, and we'll replace them all. And a lot of replacement of section loss, another engineering term. I would call the hole in the steel. The engineers refer to section loss, which is basically it's rusted through. If I can have the next slide. So, biggest project we have ever done, ship collision protection system. This is basically the installation of a modern system that is in accordance with national guidelines. If we were building this bridge today, we would be required by law to put this kind of system in, but we're grandfathered. Nevertheless, it's something we want to do. And what it is two 80-foot diameter, what the engineers refer to as dolphins at each tower approach. A dolphin is basically an 80-foot diameter cylinder that is filled with stone. And we're going to put two at each tower approach. And we got a $22.3 million federal grant for this. That's the largest grant the authority's ever received. It's under construction now. It's fascinating to watch. We're going to be completing hopefully by 2025. And as I mentioned, most expensive project we ever done, $88.9 million. Our UHPC project at $71 million was the largest that we'd ever done, and that lasted about a month. And then we got this one set up. So didn't have a long history. UHPC didn't last long as the most expensive project. So if you look at the drawing on the right, it's an overhead, and you can see in the right in the middle, that's the ship channel. So For a collision, the ship would have to go out of the channel, and maybe we should go to the next slide. Probably be easier to see. This is a rendering. So you can see the cylinders, and as you can see, they look nothing like dolphins. And behind so they're protecting the towers, and you might say, well, what about the anchorages immediately behind them? And the answer is we have to worry about that because the ship would run aground before they got there. So any kind of ship's that would damage the bridge significantly would run aground by then. So we'd have to worry about them. Now you might say, well, how really likely is it that a ship's going to hit the bridge? And the answer is it already happened. The second span was completed in 1968, and within a year, a ship hit it, did $1 million worth of damage. That'd be about $7 million today. And of course, these days, we don't have to just worry about accidental collisions. Unfortunately, in the world we live in, we have to worry about intentional collisions. So another thing you might notice here is that that's actually the original ship collision protection system around the towers there. As you can see, it's not really substantial, even to the point where it's so insubstantial that today's ships are so much bigger that the prow of the ship would probably bang into the would bang into the tower there before the hull would hit the base. So all the more reason why we need to have this as expensive it is, even as expensive as it is. Okay, so I go to the next project, please. Next page. Okay, so fall prevention fencing. Fall prevention fencing is a euphemism for suicide prevention. There's a lot of theory in mental health that's a lot of belief in mental health that you don't even want to call it suicide prevention because that will put the idea in certain people's heads who are not right mentally. In the Delaware Memorial Bridge, like every high bridge in the world, attracts people who unfortunately want to take their own life. We've had almost 200 suicides since 1951. There have been 5 people jumped and survived. 10 bodies we never recovered. It's completely at random. We had 2 since I've been here. We had 2 in one day, and then you might go a year without it. It's completely, obviously, at random. The good news is our police department is really, really good at prevention. And by prevention, well, let me talk first of all. They get special training. There's 3 types of preventions. We can talk them down. If we can get to there and talk to the unfortunate person, if they're sitting on the rail and verbalizing, if we talk to them many, many times, we can talk them down. Sometimes we can't talk them down, we grab them. And we put our officers in a special harness, and we anchor the harness, they go up, and if we can't talk them down, we may grab them. And we also intercept. Sometimes we'll get a call from somebody who says, oh my God, my loved one is driving the bridge, and he says he's going to jump off. And if we can get the license plate number, we have an ALPR, an automated license plate reader at each entrance, at each approach road, and we get a hit, and the police go out and they stop them. Now, you may have heard the notion that, well, if so-and-so doesn't kill himself one way, they're just going to do it another way. That's actually a common misconception. That's really not true at all. Many, many studies have shown, including the Golden Gate Bridge, the most famous one, that if you can successfully prevent somebody who wanted to kill themselves from killing themselves, and you get the proper treatment, they're going to live the rest of their natural life. It's a very high percentage, something like 85%. So our police, again, have been very successful. We can get there 100% of the time in the 8.5 years I've been there, 54 times, we've been able to prevent. What we can't prevent is somebody who just drives up, gets out of the car, and jumps, and that happens. That's the 200 that we're talking about. So the idea of a fence is that we disabuse people the notion they can jump, and then they think, oh, maybe I don't need to kill myself. So if you're familiar with the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, they just put up a fence that's going to be very similar to the one we're going to put up. It's a mesh anti-climb fence. The other common method is a net, which the Golden Gate Bridge just put up, but we think the mesh is better. So again, the goal is to both have the psychological and the physical deterrent. The psychological deterrent is somebody who's driving the bridge, they want to kill themselves. Obviously, they're not in their right mind. So they get to the bridge and they realize they can't jump, and then that puts a little thought, well, maybe I don't have to do this. But the physical deterrent is, It's not impossible to climb this fence, but it's very difficult. Now, I certainly couldn't do it. You need to be pretty athletic. You need to have the right shoes. You probably need gloves. And it curves inward. I'm sorry, I don't have a visual for you. It curves inward. So you're hanging there. And the whole idea is that you can't do it right away. It's going to take you some time. And by the time that you're at the top, the police have gotten there and they're able to intervene. So this is going to cost us $16.5 million when we're done. So next slide, please. So Cape May multi-purpose building, aka terminal. On any given day, Steve lets me use the term terminal, or sometimes he doesn't let me use the term. I'm never quite sure what is right. But this is the latest DRBA project and our highly successful partnership with Cape May County and Lower Township. I just can't say enough positive things about the relationship we have. If you have to have been there in 2015 when I started with the authority. And to see the transformation today, it's just been breathtaking. New structures going up like this, like the new terminal. They demolished the Everlon building, which Everlon building, if you're familiar with the Cape May Airport, the one drawback, it was an eyesore, but the one drawback is if the North Korea launched a nuclear attack on the United States, that's absolutely the place where you want it to be. You wanted to be inside that Everlon building. It was unbelievable. Built, but it was an eyesore. We sort of tore it down, and we've torn some of our buildings down. They were kind of eyesores. The roadways are new. Lower and the county put their public safety complex in there. New signage, more coming. It's just a transformation. It just looks fantastic, and great for economic development, for jobs. And so anyway, this building is, we call it multi-purpose because it's going to be both the new terminal and the FBO site. FBO stands for fixed-based operator. Fixed-based operator is the outfit that services the aircraft and the crews. Flight level aviation is our FBO at Cape May, and that's going to be in the multi-purpose building too. Going to cost us $6.5 million. It's under construction. Completion expected next March. That's just a construction photo, so it's kind of unprepossessing. But if you look at the next, go to the next slide. So this is what it's going to look like when it's done, and this is the view from the runway, but it'll have an equally nice, if not nicer, view from the roadway. And I don't know why they did the rendering this way, but that thing that you see sticking out from the right, that's an airplane wing. It's not part. It looks like it's part of the building somehow, but it's actually an airplane wing. I don't know why they drew it like that, but anyway, this is going to be really nice. We're really excited about this. So I'll get a next. Slide. So multi-tenant building. This is building number 3. Multi-tenant buildings have 8 spaces for small businesses, or if one wants a double space, it would be 7, or 2 of them would be 6. But multi-tenant buildings numbers 1 and 2, which were completed previously, are highly successful, fully occupied and leased, and we have tenants tentatively lined up for all 8 spaces of the new building. We expect to complete this in 2025. Projected cost $5.7 million, including fit outs. And we already have a 4th multi-tenant building in planning. So this is just another really great cooperative venture, another part of our cooperative venture with Cape May County and Lower Township at the airport. And last but not least, the next slide, new ferry vessel. So first replacement vessel is in design currently. Tank testing. We did our first round of tank testing in August, and we have another round in January. It just so happens that our ferry operation has sort of a unique challenge because of the low water depth of the Cape May Canal and some of the surrounding areas. Our vessels have to have a really shallow draft to clear that. But at the same time, while they're not in the middle of the ocean, they are at the mouth of the bay, and so are subject to more wave action and weather action than other ferry systems are, to the point where I think we are the only ferry operation in the United States that has that combination of rough weather or high sea requirements and low draft. So that makes the design challenging, and that's why we're doing these tank tests. Unfortunately, there is no outfit there's nobody in the United States that does tank testing. Well, the U.S. Navy does, but obviously we don't have access to their facility. So we had to go to First round we did in Denmark, and the next round we're going to is going to be in the Netherlands. This new vessel capacity is going to be 79 vehicles versus the 100. And the plan is over the next dozen years, we're going to replace the 300 vehicle capacity that we have now with 4 at 79. The reason why we're doing this is, first of all, it's cheaper, both capital and operating, but also our business is very, very seasonal. To the point where we run 3 times as many crossings in our peak season, which is Memorial Day to Labor Day, versus what we would run in January or February at bottom. So a smaller vessel is advantageous for those winter months when we don't have a lot of traffic. There's no, you don't need a 100 vehicle vessel. The smallest one you can, will do just, a smaller one will do just fine. Unfortunately, these things are extremely expensive. Our budget for the first one is $79.6 million. We're hoping to get a federal grant for that. I haven't gotten one yet, but it's something we need to do because unfortunately all 3 of our vessels are basically aging out at the same time. Again, we're going to, and just to go back to the point about capacity, if we do 4 79s, you do the math, that's at peak season, we'll have just as much capacity as we had before. But in the winter, we'll be running a smaller, less expensive vessel with plenty of capacity to handle those winter months. And that's what I've got for today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for inviting me. I always like to talk about what we're doing at the DRBA, and happy to answer your questions.
Thanks, Vince. That's a great presentation, very informative. DRBA, you have a lot of interesting facilities there, a lot of interesting projects, and obviously those come with a lot of interesting challenges, but you guys do a great job in maintaining those. So I want to open the floor to questions, just to remind folks to use the raise your hand feature, and then we can call on you. If you're not sure where to look for that option, it's at the bottom of the screen. There's a reaction button, and then use the raise hand feature. Keep yourself muted until you're called upon, just to minimize any background noise. So, okay, get started. So I don't see any just yet, but Vince, one of the things that I know that the DRBA has undertaken, it was a pretty large initiative in prior years, is the cable dehumidification. I was wondering if you could talk about that and how that's working out. Do you have any results, and is it living up to your expectations?
Sure. The idea behind this is, as everybody knows, is corrosion comes from moisture, and metal and moisture yield rust, and the idea is to reduce the rust. So the layman's explanation for this is we put an air conditioner inside the cables, but the idea is to reduce the humidity and retard corrosion. The science on this is apparently if you can get the relative humidity below 40%, you are not just going to retard corrosion, you're going to eliminate it. That's the science apparently. We have a whole lot of so we installed it, cost about $40 million, and when you retard the corrosion, the cables are basically going to last indefinitely. And of course, in the business we're in, indefinitely is a really nice term that we like to use. So some of the monitoring points have the have the humidity as low as 10%. I think the Sahara Desert is 25%. So that gives you an idea of how dry it is in there. But again, it's just going to prolong the life of these of the main cables, definitely. The reason why the main cables is so important is there's just about anything on the bridge that you can repair or replace, with the exception of the main cables. If your main cables go, a repair or replacement is going to cost you more. You might as well build a new bridge. That would be so expensive to redo the main cable. So that's why we made this investment. Again, that's the one part of the bridge that you really can't, replace or repair.
Yeah, that's a significant investment, 40 million, but it pales in comparison to replacing that bridge, or even attempting to replace those cables. So that's an interesting project, and I think you guys were one of the first in the U.S. to actually put that on your bridge.
We were the second in the United States to do that.
Yeah. So congratulations on that accomplishment. That's a great project.
We've got, you know, I tease our engineers, but all the time, but we've got great engineers, great engineers. I'm so impressed with the work they do. And our consultants are excellent too. Our combination of our staff engineers who are basically project managers. We're handling, you know, $100 million worth of construction every year. They do a lot of project management, but our consultants are great too. So I'm really, my hat's off to our engineering team.
Yeah, your team does a great job. It really is a team effort, though, between the you know, consultants that you bring on to hire for their expertise, and then your own in-house experts. So you do a great job. It is some interesting facilities. I'm not seeing any questions.
Bill,
Ben,
I have a
Ben or
question.
Maureen? Oh, go ahead, Rich.
I'm challenged here, so I was trying to find the hand. I couldn't find it. I guess, Vince, my question would be improving the ferry system, building new ships or ferries. Is there any discussion on going to more green, carbon neutral type programs within the DRBA?
Well, absolutely. Let me talk about the ferries. Our new vessels are going to be hybrids. That decision's already been made. There are a couple of challenges there. First challenge is the existing battery capacity is such that we can't get all the way across our route. So we don't have the option of just building an all electric ferry. We need hybrid propulsion at this point. Now, you know, in the business we're in, obviously we have to think, you know, decades, you know, 50 years in advance, and this is a 50-year plan. So for the new vessels, because that's how long our current ones will probably last. So we're pretty sure that the technology is going to change and improve over those decades. So that's why we're doing hybrid. You know, so at some point we would love to move to all electric, zero emission, but the technology just isn't there yet. But we hope it will be at some point. Now the other challenge is the electric grid. Again, nothing that the rest of the country doesn't face. Right now, we don't have the charging capacity on either side. And by that, I mean the local, first of all, we don't have our own infrastructure, which we have to build, but we're prepared to do that. But we'd also have to upgrade the grid on both sides. Neither Cape May nor Lewis have the existing electrical grid that would allow us to charge. Now, again, that's something we pay for, hopefully with some grant assistance, and we're committed to doing it in the long run. But in the short run, the short answer is the immediate. The new vessels will be hybrids.
Okay, great. Any other questions? I don't want to miss anybody. I didn't see any hands go up. At Ben or Marlene, if I'm missing anyone, please let me know.
I can't find the hand button.
Okay.
You just went on mute, John.
John, I think you're muted.
I sounded better that way. I sounded
There we
really
go.
smart. No, thank you. John McCarver. One of the things that we've been discussing recently within the Development Council and looking at is kind of the influx of hydrogen and the forthcoming Mach 2 and the hydrogen hub that's going to be placed regionally in Delaware. And one of the things we know that obviously the pipelines and everything in the infrastructure going out to the airport in Philadelphia is there. I don't know what infrastructure may exist or if this is even a possible thought or something to be utilized going forward for you folk in kind of, as you say, getting a hybrid and what that kind of, gets into, because as we said, sometimes electric is taxing enough on the grid in its current state, but realizing that they're putting this huge investment down there for this hydrogen hub. I don't know if that's been any sort of conversation yet as far as transitioning, if that's even a possible transition or doing due diligence and checking out that option.
I apologize. The sound isn't the best here on my end. Are you saying hydrogen fuel? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, as they're putting in a hydrogen hub down there, I believe in Delaware, to service like the regional kind of development.
As far as the ferries, is that your question?
Or the ferries or any of the infrastructure, fuel to the airports that you folks run, or is there any discussion of integrating it into your fuel stream?
To be honest with you, I'm not aware of that discussion. Most of the clean environmental stuff we're doing is going to be electric based,
right?
In terms of, and I talked about the ferry, but also we've added charging. We already have charging stations in Lewis and Cape May, and we're going to add them at the bridge as well. And we'll be moving to some electric vehicles at some point. Of course, the big challenge is we have a gigantic amount of heavy equipment, and the technology that we see isn't just there yet for alternate fuels. But certainly, our passenger vehicles at some point will be moving towards. We are moving towards electric vehicles.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Vince. Okay, we maybe have time for one more. Marlene?
I'm just wondering, Vince, and by the way, thank you, Vince and Steve, for joining us this morning. Excellent information. I was just wondering what the activity was on the ferry this past summer.
You mean the level of the activity?
Mhm.
You mean how's our business? Is that what you're? How's our traffic? Well, the good news, it keeps going up. We are not yet. I'll be honest with you. We are not yet where we were before the pandemic. We're getting close, but we're not there yet.
Mhm.
So we've recovered most of our business, but unfortunately not all of it.
Vince, one of the things that
when we have a downturn, the bridge tends to recover faster than the ferry. That's just been a historical pattern, and that's the case this time.
Vince, one of the things I thought was interesting on the ferry, I know they used to do these butterfly cruises or something during the migration of the monarchs or something. Is that something that you're still doing? I know it was in prior years. That used to be pretty popular, I think.
I have to be honest with you. I'm not familiar with the butter. We do a whole lot of, and we do rock the boat. We do fireworks cruises. I'm not aware of the butterfly cruise.
Yeah, I'd heard in prior years there's a specific time where these butterflies kind of migrate across the bay.
Find out what happened to the butterfly. That's not one I'm familiar with. I'm not sure we've done that since I've been here.
Okay, it sounded like a very unique idea in the past, and I thought it got pretty good participation. So maybe it's something that you discontinued, but either way. So Vince, thank you very much. Thank you on behalf of the Southern Regional Development Council and the Transportation and Aviation Committee, my fellow co-chairs, Sam Modi, Steve Manera. Thanks a lot for your presentation today. Really appreciate it and enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay. And now I just want to turn it over to John Hanson and Mike Venuto from the Delaware River Port Authority. They're going to give us a quick update on the Glassboro-Camden Line project.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to be here with the Transportation and Aviation Committee today. Thank you to Marlene for inviting us. And just a sort of a recap on the project. It's an 18-mile passenger rail line going from Glassboro, New Jersey to Camden, New Jersey, or from Camden to Glassboro, depending upon your perspective. It'll go through Gloucester and Camden counties, and it is a partnership between DRPA, South Jersey Transportation Authority, and New Jersey Transit. It's currently funded $200 million through the South Jersey Transportation Authority, with DRPA acting as the project manager. The EIS was completed in 2021. The preliminary engineering awarded in 2022, and 10% design was completed just this past October. So that's brand new. That includes survey, station renderings, updated ridership and traffic data, and preliminary plans. Next year, October 2024, we expect the 30% design to be completed. That'll be the 30% concept plans and the technical provisions, the Conrail phasing plans, the vehicle procurement RFQ and RFP, the DBOM for the RFQ, RFP. All of that at the October of 2024. And then we expect DBOM award in 2025, 2026, be a 6 to 9 month process to get that done. We're meeting now, not really Mike and I, or we're not meeting at the higher level, but the team is meeting with the towns, with elected officials and their engineers and their staff to talk about what's going to be done to get their feedback on what we need to do. As you know, we're really taking this project in a way that will create the quiet zones for the towns that want it. We're going to be paying for that and implementing all of the equipment. So the ridership study was part of what we just did. And we come back with the ridership is still, as it was projected at the beginning of this project, at least the numbers are the same, about 16,000 by the year 2030. It's flattened out though, so it'll be more steady, less of a spike around the rush hours, which probably gives us an opportunity to procure less cars. So that's sort of what we're seeing, which is great news in the face of the news that we're seeing right now about public transportation numbers being down during the pandemic. And it's an interesting problem because even though ridership is down, public transportation, it really is a lot like a utility, the way it functions. And in the same way, you don't stop making improvements and upgrades to the power grid. If power usage is down for some reason, it's going to wax and wane, or you don't start to tear out the water pipe infrastructure. If people are using less water, people still need to be able to get places. And one of the things that we believe at DRPA PACO is that people show up for the things that are important to them. There's been a pretty big reprioritization from my perspective throughout the country and probably throughout the world since the pandemic. We've seen a lot of indications that right now people have moved their priorities away from their careers and work into other areas. These ideas like quiet quitting and even remote work, from our perspective, is a reprioritization of work and careers. Zoom weddings, they never really caught on because people show up for them. They're important, right? And that's how we feel. And we believe that that day is going to come again. There may be some more flexibility, but the wheel will turn around on that. From our perspective, we don't have hybrid work or remote work, and we're just waiting for everybody to catch up with us. So that's the update on the Glassboro-Camden line, is sort of our thinking about the future.
All right. Well, thanks, John. Does anyone have any questions for John or Mike about the Glassboro-Camden line project? Okay, well, it's definitely a great project. We want to thank SJTA for supporting it, with financially and helping manage it, and DRPA for championing the efforts to move this forward. So it's a good project for South Jersey. It's going to offer a lot of transportation alternatives for folks. So definitely appreciate that. So again, on behalf of the Development Council and the Transportation Aviation Committee, thanks, John. Thanks, Mike, for joining us here. I did see that Stephen Doherty, Mike Solomon, Steve Mazer, and Dave Zapparello. So we've got some folks on here from SJTA. They had a groundbreaking event earlier this week, and if you would like to talk about that and tell the committee what that's all about, I'd like to give you a few minutes to have the floor.
Hey, Bill, thank you. It's Stephen Doherty here. It's good to see everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to give the update. On Monday, we held a press conference and a groundbreaking for our all-electronic tolling project, which we will see go live in May 2025. Just really exciting. We're going to look to spend about $80 million total on the project, and we're going to have official shovels in the ground sometime, hopefully here in the fourth quarter, and looking forward to changing how tolling is done throughout the state of New Jersey.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I got to tell you, I love that Easy Pass. I like the Express Easy Pass. I don't like stopping at toll plazas. I don't like the backups, not only does it save time, it's, environmentally to have all those cars idling and stopping and starting, it's not good either. So that's definitely a great project. Does anyone have any questions for Stephen while we have him here?
I do want to mention too, Bill, real quick, and we appreciate the council's support in it. Going back to our toll increases in 2020 and this project specifically, among other things, Marlene and the group and of course the members have been so instrumental in helping us to get that increase. And we couldn't have done it without you guys. And even the other day, Marlene took time out of her schedule, and there's some folks on here to attend the event as well. So we appreciate the continued support as well from the group.
Well, the SJTA, you had a lot of lean years as far as, budget wise, and you had to hold things together, and you were forced to maintain and stretch every dollar. And you and your entire team did an excellent job. And that's very challenging. I commend you and all of those at SJTA for that accomplishment. I think that's tremendous. So I'm glad to see that now you have money to advance some of the projects that have been not only in the pipeline and thoughts, but you've had a number sitting on the shelf, the all electronic tolling being one of them. So it's nice to see it moving forward. So thanks again. All right, appreciate it. Thanks, Stephen. Any questions? If not, Marlene, I'll turn it over to you for any last minute thoughts or words.
Yeah, just something that I found pretty exciting lately. Of course, Monday, we were with the South Jersey Transportation Authority for that groundbreaking. And Tuesday, we were in Edgewater Park for groundbreaking there, which would be a facility for the police force in Edgewater Park, along with the community center. And that was funded or will be funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Rural Development Program. So that was pretty exciting. Then to hear John Hanson talk about the Glassboro-Camden Light Rail, which sounds like maybe 2025 or 2026, we're going to see something roaming up and down the train track. And then to hear from Vince with regard to the DRBA and its projects, this is a pretty exciting time. Busy times. Thank you all to the Transportation Committee for your efforts and your contributions. A few more groundbreakings would be nice. So if you have any, let us know. But I just wanted to say that it's been a couple of weeks of high energy economic development, shovel in the ground activity, and we're excited about it. And thank you, co-chairs. Thank you, Bill, for running the meeting. Sam, Steve, thank you all. Rich, thank you. That's it for me.
All right. Okay, well, thank you, Marlene, and thanks everybody for joining. I appreciate it. We'll let you go. You'll be informed of the next event, and we look forward to seeing you there. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.